in which Israel's relationship to God would be enhanced, would be enriched, would be secured. Now that is the backdrop. That is the amazing backdrop that lies behind Peter's language when he says, God gave them the Spirit, just as he gave the Spirit to us. Everything that God has done for the Jews, he's done for the Gentiles. What we have been waiting for, what we have been praying for, what we have been hoping for and suffering for, God has given to those who have not been waiting and have not been praying and haven't been suffering. What do you think of that? Peter draws lessons from this. He says God does not show favouritism. God is no respecter of persons. When I was growing up, our mum and dad would take us to visit an old lady, a relative. She would give us all sweets. There were 6 of us kids. And that was pretty good. But the youngest of us, she would always give him more sweets than any of the rest. And Christmas time she would send 6 envelopes with money. We'd all get some money, but the youngest would get twice as much as all the rest. My parents used to intercept those envelopes and bring them all up to speed. Don't you reckon they were wise? That's what they did. God doesn't have favourites. Think of the damage done. Think of the inhumanity perpetrated among us, because affection is lavished here and withheld there. Think of the untold ruin that is wrought by this. Think of the mess that Jacob made of his family because he played favourites with his son Joseph. What a bitter harvest of heartache that yielded. Over and above this world and everything in it, there is an immeasurably wonderful, beautiful personality who guides everything, who sustains everything, who keeps everything going, who provides for everything and everyone. He is an infinitely wonderful spirit. And he loves no one more than he loves you. And he cares for everyone just as much as he cares for me. You know, you and I have never ever met any other person who does exactly that. Not exactly. Not precisely. Not like God. He loves everyone the same. You know, Peter, part of this, the events that we're thinking about here, Peter had a dream. Remember that? He saw all these animals that were known to be unclean in his religion. And in the dream, God said, come on, Peter, get up and kill and make yourself a feed. Get a meal for yourself. But Peter said, no, I can't do that. I mustn't do that. I've never eaten anything unclean in all my life. I've always been good. I've always done what's right. And God said, don't you call anything impure that I have made clean. Peter was steeped in a faith that made a lot of uncleanness, impurity. The whole system of Judaism rested on a premise that men and women simply could not approach God unless various defilements were dealt with first. There were clean and unclean foods, clean and unclean animals, clean and unclean spaces, clean and unclean places, things, times, people. And you know what? It began to dawn on Peter after he met Jesus and after the Spirit had been given and after he saw that God was giving his Spirit to people that perhaps Peter wouldn't have thought of giving it to. And when Peter saw all of these things happening before him, it dawned on him that Jesus Christ himself and his Spirit had become everything that the Jewish religion was meant to achieve. Jesus had somehow summed it all up and accomplished it all. Everything that was indicated by the Jewish religion, everything that Judaism aspired to, Jesus had become. Jesus had become the sacrifice, the guilt, the sin. Jesus had become the washing place, the laver in the temple. Jesus had become the high priest who appeared before God on behalf of the people. He had become the mercy seat, the place where the blood of sprinkling was put. He had become the temple bread, the bread of life. He had become the candles, the light of life, the altar, the curtain, the law, the temple itself, the elaborate, complicated, clumsy, repetitive arrangement of sacrifice, atonement, priesthood and washing, which was meant to maintain the Hebrew people in covenant with God and deliver them His Spirit, was made redundant in one mighty stroke. Jesus came. Amen. Jesus came. On the cross, Jesus achieved a cleanness once and for all. He achieved it for His people. No need any longer for a priestly class. No need any longer for an elite class of spiritual brokers or religious professionals, if you like, to do business with God on behalf of other men and women. Now the way has been opened for individual access to God. Every man a priest, every woman a priest, because of Jesus. No longer any need for endless fastings and washings and sacrifices. God has opened for us in Jesus a fountain for sin and uncleanness. Jesus is a sea of washing, an ocean of purification. He has effected for us a unilateral de-staining, a cosmic rinsing. Yeah. And it has been done as truly for Gentiles as Jews. Do not call impure what God has made clean. We're told that Cornelius the Gentile was a devout, God-fearing man. Isn't that interesting? He already was that. He was a decent, good, living man. Why was it then important for him to meet Peter, and why was it important for Peter to go and deliver him the message? Why wasn't it good enough to just leave him be? Ever thought about that? I think it was because the message was a message about something special about God. Both Peter and Cornelius were good men, but both needed to learn about grace. There's something special about grace that is only revealed in Jesus. And that means there is something about God we can all benefit from that can only be known when we meet Jesus. There are upright and principled people living all around us in this world. Some of them don't even believe in God. They need to learn grace, as we all do. Then they will know God better, and then they'll love Him more, and then they'll serve Him with greater vigour. We need to know what God is really like, no matter how good we are, or how decent we are, how respectable we are. We can be improved upon out of sight if we learn about the grace of God. Grace is something that's quite unique. It goes against the temper of humanity. We have an inbuilt resistance to grace. From Christ we learn that there is in God an infinite supply of goodwill toward men. It's a kindness that doesn't flow from God in response to us. We do not attract it out of Him. We do not beckon it forth from Him. We do not sidle up to God with our respectability or our little smidgen of faith, whatever it is we might have,